the funny thing is you have this idea in your head that once I go to this next level, or once I get that booking, or once I do this, things will change. But really, it's just about having perseverance and the passion to keep doing it.
What's up, guys? Happy Thursday. Fun little announcement before we get to today's interview with Shay. If you don't follow Arc Music Festival already on social media, particularly Instagram, please do, because your girl is collaborating on content with the festival. This is something that I've wanted to do since I stepped foot in Union Park in 2021 on Labor Day weekend and looked around and thought to myself, holy shit, this is the coolest festival ever, and it's walking distance from my house. Well, at the time. I cannot believe, I'm just so grateful that this is where this industry is taking me in this next iteration of my career. I just get to do so many cool things. And it's a testament to everything I talk about with these artists on the show, particularly Shay, actually. Shay, she's a DJ, producer, visual artist. She's a classically trained pianist, violist, and her best advice on this show, which relates so much to what I'm doing with Arc, is don't give up. You got to put the reps in. You're only going to fail if you quit. And I certainly have experienced setbacks in this industry before, as I'm sure all of you have and can relate. And so I am just so grateful for these opportunities. And I really hope you guys enjoy today's episode, because Shay gives some really raw and real advice about what it takes to make it. So I'm so stoked to talk to you, because I love to talk to artists who go from this classical music to house music pipeline. I find that so interesting. So for my audience that doesn't know anything about your background, can you kind of just tell me about your childhood and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. I'm excited to be here and speak with you. So I grew up, first instrument was piano at 5 years old. So, basis of that for me was learning Suzuki method, like reading music and then playing it. So I learned how to read music that way, and then kind of translated into symphony, which I did for like my whole rest of my childhood. I played viola. So I definitely was kind of split between classical music and then my other love of like popular music and, of course, anything my parents played at home. So that all kind of came to influence my kind of diverse taste in music, I would say, and probably influences I don't even realize that are influencing me subconsciously, like as I create music. But yeah, I think it's really special to have kind of a classical background and get to experience music in that way, like sitting in a symphony, playing music with, 100 other people, creating this larger sound and, all these dynamics. It just kind of instills you with this appreciation for sonics and instruments, and something I will always cherish for sure.
Yeah, I think it's so cool that house music pulls inspiration from every other genre out there. So is that something that you would say you've used as a base for when you're producing, just pulling some of those elements from when you were younger? I know you were with the Premier Youth Symphony, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's that like?
Yeah, that's interesting. It's something I don't necessarily think about as I'm creating the music, but I think it inherently kind of comes through as I'm, playing and creating music. I agree. House music is so cool. Like, sampling oldies and really interesting like particles of music and then creating something new with them. I think creatively it just gives me this kind of basis of like anything, maybe a broader sense of what music can be and what could be done. Also, another kind of interesting thing about how I learned classical music that might differ from some people is that Suzuki method style of reading music and then playing, because, to be quite honest, like my music theory knowledge is not insane, because I was learning to read and then play, but not necessarily the intricacies of it. So when I'm making music now today, although my music theory has obviously improved and it's been a learning curve, and I've put a lot of effort into, the process of becoming a great producer, but I still do a lot by ear. And, some of that experience, just having played all these other types of classical music growing up, definitely gave me a good ear for things. And, when you play a stringed instrument, there's no frets. It's not like the guitar, you're finding the tune, you're finding the sound. So when I'm sitting down to produce, I definitely go by feeling and sound first. I might have it in mind, like, oh, I want to start in F minor, like whatever, some simple kind of starting point. But from there, it's kind of a free for all.
I love that. It makes me think about, I was arguing with someone on TikTok the other day and we were arguing. Well, people are always trying to argue with me on TikTok, but we were talking about, I was talking about meal prepping and the difference between people who are classically trained chefs and go to culinary school versus home cooks, and who's better. And I think that there's no one right answer, but it's like, if you can combine elements of both, like that classic training, that formalized training that you've had, plus just going based off of your feelings, whether it's music or how much salt you should add, and add it with your heart and not like the measurement in the cookbook, that's like the perfect recipe for amazing art.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I've definitely felt that with my peers and some people who, I know in the industry who maybe are so classically trained, not to a fault, but they find that it can distract them from just enjoying or kind of seeing it from, a different view. So
yeah,
definitely. I feel like I'm happy about the balance I have currently, just kind of inherently through it. And I don't know. Yeah. Like I said before, I don't really think about my classical training influencing my music necessarily overtly. But that being said, I do want to put my viola in some of my tracks, like moving forward. I think it'd be tight to somehow integrate like the actual instrument, but yeah, just going by feeling and yes, having a somewhat of a basis of knowledge. And then, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I think being able to break the rules a little bit is so important, in anything. And, also I've talked about this topic with other artists as well, having like that palate cleanser from house. So listening to other things, because sometimes if you're getting too deep in the weeds with house music, like you can accidentally, inadvertently plagiarize someone else's sound, or it's just not giving you like the inspiration that you need. So do you listen to classical music or any other type of music kind of as like your palate cleanser when you're taking a break from producing?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say I predominantly do listen to house music, but that's partially because I think to be good at your craft, you have to know where you're going and you have to know your community and you have to know what's going on out there, So like when I'm working out, it's house music, but I absolutely love kind of ambient electronic music like the XX. I listen to oldies. I listen to literally so many types of music still. I have multiple playlists, for instance, that I'm just like, for a mood, it's like either hanging out with friends, chilling, driving, night driving. Like, I think music is like the soundtrack to our lives. So, curating your own life through music kind of. But filling the well, I think actually, cleansing the palate is different. That's kind of what you were asking. But then it made me think about filling the well, and it's not necessarily through listening to music that I fill the well. It's doing other things that fulfill kind of my inner soul and that then inspire me to create music.
What are some of those things?
I mean, it could be, I'm lucky to live in LA, but it could be going to the beach, literally smelling different air than I was smelling, in a different part of LA. I watch a lot of cinema and movies, shows, obviously like moving your body, working out, some of just, life is stressful. There's a lot going on always. And finding those moments that kind of fulfill you. Honestly, when I sit down at a computer, I don't really have trouble being creative or letting, I always call it like the higher power, like come through me and kind of realize itself as music. So as long as I have the energy physically, emotionally, as my own person to sit down, that's the most important. And then once I sit down, it's just like a blank canvas and it's like sprint into it. Yeah.
I harp on this probably every other episode, but having those hobbies outside of what you do professionally is so important. And in my world, like, so, you're an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
All DJs are entrepreneurs, whether they know it or not. And I feel like one thing in the entrepreneur world is like people think you need to read 1 million personal development books to get to the next level. And it's like, no, why don't you read Dr. Seuss or like something completely like read a book about fishing, like go do something that is completely different from, what you're trying to learn and be better at, like producing music, whatever it is, because then it's going to create this pathway in your brain where you're going to connect the dots in a different way. And so I think that and I also think for like the newer artists who listen to this show, they're so worried about not putting in enough time in the studio. They feel like every single second of their day, where if they're not working a day job, whatever, needs to be consumed by being in the studio. And they think if they don't do that, they're not going to succeed. And I don't think that that's true.
Yeah. It's like a double-edged sword because if you're producing, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're producing, singing, DJing, whatever it is. But I will say, I think producing is the highest learning curve, meaning you do have to put in the most hours just to become a true expert, so to speak. Or to be really good at something, there's always those sayings in those self-help books and stuff, like it takes X amount of time to become truly great at something, like 5 years or whatever it is. And I'm like, understatement. So I don't know. Yeah. I also I grew up having like a really disciplined household and stuff. So for me, it is kind of all about, I don't want to say all about, but it is so imperative to put in the time. But of course, it's all a balance. And that is the conundrum of life.
It is. I appreciate you being honest about that because I too find myself in this endless cycle of work. And then I notice at a certain point that my output is not great because I haven't scheduled in rest for myself. So that balance that you're talking about, rest needs to be, in my opinion, scheduled like everything else. And that might not sound sexy or nice, but it's like, but then here's my boundary, and then it's time to get back to work.
Oh yeah. I mean, in life in general, you have to be well yourself to be able to then give back. And I see music as, in a way, giving. You're giving yourself, you're giving to creation, you're giving effort and mental and emotion to a song, to a track, to hours in the studio. And then, I mean, I liken it to life because I think life should be kind of about, prospering yourself, but then giving back. And that could be emotionally to a friend or a family member, or, to fans, to social media. This day and age, there's just so many things. So it's more important than ever in a way to kind of find that time for yourself and, be well for your art and for others and the people you love.
Yeah, that's so true. So are you from California?
Yeah, I'm from NorCal originally, so I switched.
Okay.
Now I'm in SoCal.
Yeah. So a big topic that I talk about with my friends who are artists pretty frequently is like, does where you live, like, does that matter? Does that excel the success of your career and get you to certain places faster? And I'm always interested, especially to talk to, I'm in Chicago, so obviously that's a hub, but coastal DJs, how do you feel like being in LA has impacted the trajectory of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been in the mindset that, for one, first of all, coming out of my hometown, I was like, I want to go to LA. I want to go to SoCal. I think a lot of people, like, it's the land, I call it the land of dreams, kind of cheesy, but I feel that's true because there's just so much opportunity in some of these large hubs. And, for a while it was kind of LA, New York. And now there's like multiple for music and house music. Like, I was just in Miami for my first Miami Music Week. Mm-hmm. It was insane. And I was like, oh my God, I think might need to move here. Like, it's just so. As for LA, like, I noticed, especially coming from Miami and LA, like, seeing the differences. Both are huge, music centers of the US, and especially Miami for house specifically, is you see kind of different crowds and you see different artists from different places in both places. Like, LA is very much a city where, a lot of people are transients coming from elsewhere. And Miami is the same, but they're from different elsewheres. Like, the UK, it's closer to Europe, the UK, Spain, Italy.
So many Italians there.
Yeah.
I was there too. Everyone around me. And my father was born in Sicily, and just all around me, I hear everyone speaking Italian. It's crazy. That's right?
So cool. No, it's very diverse. Like, the people are from literally everywhere. And yes, Europe a lot. I actually got to have coffee with someone I idolize, Marco Lice, you might know. He did the Brighter Days song that, like, everyone and their moms plays out. So anyway, it just special things like that can happen, like, depending where you are. But talking about, like, living in LA and kind of opportunity, one, for live shows, there's just always something happening, always an opportunity to play out or connect with other artists. Like, it's crazy the amount of people who live in LA, that being said, there is something nice about going elsewhere and kind of integrating into new communities of the music scene, because every city is just unique and has a different type of vibe. Different people are kind of the head people in that city. Different artists live there. So yeah, but I love LA. I'm a total Cali girl. The weather can't be beat, and land of opportunity.
Yeah. I'm always impressed by people who aren't afraid to move around and test out living in different places. I've had a lot of DJ friends who've made the move from Chicago to LA, and then sometimes they come back. It just depends. But, that's it. Obviously, there's a lot of risk that comes with this career. I mean, especially if you quit your day job and you do it full time. Mm-hmm. But on the other side of the coin, you do have the opportunity to kind of move around and be transient and flexible. And so like you just said, you're thinking about moving to Miami. As someone who used to live there briefly, I will say,
Let's hear.
I will say, I don't want to get myself in trouble, but like, I mean, it's just a different, you were just there. So, it's a different beast.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I mean, LA is a massive city. So it's not like, you'd be going somewhere.
It's all a beast. Let's be honest.
It is. And the weather's beautiful. But it's very cool that they have like the super late nights, and it's just like you said, a more global European city. But it is interesting too how I've talked to some friends, and I don't know if this is true for you, but like when you go somewhere and play a show, do you ever feel inspired by that scene and that vibe and then make music?
100%. 100%. Yeah. Like literally when I came back from Miami, actually there was one night my show got canceled from a thunderstorm. It was a pool party. So I ended up just staying in for like 6 hours that night before I like went back out at midnight, Miami hours. But anyway, there was one night and it was towards the end of my like 5-day trip, and I was so inspired and I just made music because when the inspiration strikes, but it was definitely like a specific vibe and kind of the sound that I'm currently making, which I like to call world house, but kind of tribal percussions, like melodic elements and just really worldly sounding stuff. So, and I heard a lot of that in my time in Miami. Yeah.
I love that. Another artist explained it to me, like that week is really the time to see what everyone else is doing and get your finger on the pulse for kind of how the year is going to go. Cause you test out new music there and kind of, get feedback in real time. Is that something that you had done as well?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I knew, who would be playing and different artists that were going to be there and shows I was going to go and see. But there were things that definitely surprised me too. Like I saw Francis Mercier and his like Afro House event, and that was just literally mind boggling. I was so obsessed. It was like probably my favorite show all week. So, I forget what the question was. I got distracted.
No, Francis Mercier is incredible. So, and it makes sense. Like you said, you're inspired by those worldly sounds. So I'm curious, like, let's pivot a little bit. There's different challenges in this industry as like you add on layers of, where you live, who and I always am interested, as candid as you want to be, like what are some of the challenges that you've faced in this industry? Because when my audience hears from people who've, had success, it makes them feel a little bit better about where they are in their careers.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, where do I begin? Right. But, I don't know, like bringing it back to what you were saying earlier about like working and finding time for yourself and stuff. I almost feel like more of the struggle is like an internal struggle or not struggle, but journey, it's like a self journey. And of course you're going to face your obstacles. You'll hear no a million times. You won't get that opportunity that you were hoping for, even though you felt like you were qualified for it. And really all of this just comes back to never stop. And I always say that it's like the only time you'll fail at something is when you stop. Because as long as you keep going, there's always going to be new opportunities, things you didn't even know were even a thing for you or whatnot. And they'll find their way to you. But I just find, not to be your own worst enemy and just kind of take care of yourself and stay on it. Like, we've all heard no 500 million times, and there will be no's for even the largest artists in the world. It's kind of crazy. The funny thing is you have this idea in your head that, once I go to this next level, or once I get that booking, or once I do this, things will change. But really, it's just about having perseverance and the passion to keep doing it. The only time you'll fail is when you quit.
It's so true. And one thing I always remind myself is, if everything were like to go away tomorrow, like all the stuff, all the jobs that I have and, the income sources, whatever, I wouldn't be starting from scratch. I'd be starting from this mountain of knowledge that I've gained. And so, like you said, if you stop learning. Mm-hmm. And so you're not able to like take those experiences and help use them to get your yeses. Mm-hmm. And so I think that like the majority of people don't realize how many people do just give up. Mm-hmm. And if you're one of the people who keeps pushing, like you're doing so much better than everyone else. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, 100%.
And so talk to me about like what you have on the horizon for the rest of this year. I know you just did Music Week, but like what's exciting for you coming up?
Yeah, well, I have some shows, festivals this summer, and of course, most importantly, new music. Well, importantly to me, new music, because I feel that is, other than live sets, what I'm sharing, and specifically sharing me, because, live sets, you do play other people's music out and it's taste making, but the new music is what I think I'm most excited about, especially since I've really been kind of honing in my sound, and I'm just excited to make my mark, my own statement within the industry, and to let people know what I've been working on. It feels like gatekeeping for indeterminate amounts of time in the music industry, because some things are out of your control, like release schedules or all of that. So, but I'm definitely sitting on a healthy amount of music that I'm super excited to share. And I'll be playing out some of them in my upcoming shows as well, and recent shows.
That's awesome. So if you could have your perfect balance of being in the studio, producing versus playing festivals versus playing clubs, what would be your balance, like percentage wise?
Oh, that's a hard one. When you say them, I don't know. I'm a Gemini too. So I'm half and half. Everything is like about balance for me, or trying to find the balance. So when you said that, I'm like, yeah. Yeah, thirds. No, I don't know. And then I think about, club versus festivals, and they both are so unique in themselves and different. And I love certain aspects of each individually. Of course, at Miami, I didn't actually go to Ultra. So Miami Music Week was like a bunch of, pool parties and then club shows.
Right.
And there is something, so it just, you go to those shows where the crowd is feeling it, and it's just like a really good show. And like Honey Love's show, it was a small club, and it was like everyone there was so into the music, and the sound was great. The sound system was great. And it is like shows like that remind me how much I love, like, it doesn't matter if you're playing in front of 9,000 people or 100 or 150. It's like you can create the vibe, and small club shows can be sometimes like the vibiest.
Yeah, they're my favorite, but
Are
there's
they?
no question. Oh,
really?
Yeah. Any day I would rather see, it doesn't matter who, I would rather see an artist play in a club versus a festival, even though I still go to festivals. I just think you get a better picture of who they are. And I don't know. Is it more fun to play clubs or festivals, in your opinion?
Both can be so fun. I mean, what's funny about clubs is you actually, as a DJ, you honestly can see people more sometimes, because they're right there, versus sometimes festival, you're like really far away, and it's just like this idea of the crowd and kind of a general thing, but you're not like seeing too many specifics. But in clubs, like you might notice this one guy going ham all night, and it's like giving you life, and you're like, oh, he's really doing it, so there are definitely, things that I love about that. Yeah.
That's really funny. Like now I think about when I've been at clubs, have DJs see, like, what do I look like to the
They've
DJs
seen
play?
you.
You know what I mean?
They might have.
What does my having fun face look like?
Right.
And how many times have I embarrassed myself?
Oh, I know. And it's funny, like I've seen tweets before of DJs like complaining about so-and-so, like some person in the front row that, like, if you're not feeling it, like if they're just standing there, you know, let the other people come forward, you know, that are enjoying it more. So it is funny.
Yeah, true.
But we are staring at the decks a lot of time. So you never know.
Of course. Of course. Hopefully that, you know, that's the mark of a good artist. They're paying attention. So, okay. So like, can you put a percentage on the studio versus festival versus club? Because like the reason I ask is because I don't know, you're a Gemini. So you're an introvert and extrovert.
Yeah.
Like
when you said it that way, then I'm like studio shows. And then once again, I split it down the middle. So I might say 50-50 because it really is some of my favorite time in life to sit in my studio at night. Everyone's asleep. It's 1 a.m. World is my oyster. Like,
no one's emailing you.
No one's emailing me. No, I'm plugged in literally, and just that is just some of my favorite. It's too, like, I don't know. I have a degree in fine art, so I came from a painting background as well. So, you know, when I'm sitting down at Ableton, it's very visual for me, and it literally likens itself to a blank canvas. And there's nothing more exciting than just possibility, and creativity just kind of oozes out of me. So I like need somewhere to put it. Yeah. So I would say 50-50 because we know how fun shows are, and live, there's literally nothing like it either. So.
Yeah, that's really amazing. Okay. So you kind of gave me the green light when you said you're a Gemini. A lot of the DJs I talk to, anytime I mention Zodiac, they're like, piss off, Olivia. Like,
Are they guys? Are they guys?
Yeah. So I kind of like to just, you know, poke at them and try to get them to tell me like their full birth chart or like,
what are you?
Born. I'm an Aquarius.
Oh, I love Aquarii.
Yes, that's me. And so, do you think, because I do you think that people's like birth charts have an effect on their artistry and their personalities as DJs?
Yeah, I mean, as people, I believe that it does, and that can only surely translate naturally somehow. I don't know exactly how, but yeah, I mean, you see. So if you think about zodiac sign, like everyone has different personalities, different innate ways about them. And like, you see that with DJs too, and artists, you see the introverts, you see the extroverts, you see the ones that are really independent, or you see the ones that are more, I don't know, social or band together with others. And like, you know, I'm not going to like run through the zodiac charts, but each of the signs have their own, you know, discrepancies and kind of tendencies, which I think in general show in people. Of course, I do know people who also say F the zodiac sign, like F all that. But, you know, in my experience, I feel like it's remarkable, some of the accuracies that can happen.
I agree.
Right.
I saved this for the end because now I know we've effectively lost all my male listeners. It's just they extracted the wisdom and knowledge they needed from the bulk of this episode, and now they're like, all right, I'm out. But I love talking about it. It's you know, I've convinced most people, a lot of the men in my life, my brother, my dad, and my husband, that there's validity to it. So
yeah, no, 100%.
You know, you just got to tell them about themselves, like center them.
And then they're like, wait, that is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. Well, this has been so much fun. I'm so grateful to you for sharing some of your wisdom and your knowledge. And I'm excited to see what you do next. And I will be following closely to see if you move to Miami.
Oh, I appreciate it, Olivia. Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely chatting. Girl power.
Of course. doing these interviews really reminds me how much it takes to be a DJ and producer in 2024. Like, you can't just be good at making music. You have to do other things to set yourself apart. And Shay is so naturally talented at so many different modalities of art, but she's also been practicing them since she was literally 5 years old. So she's incredibly disciplined. And if you check her out on Instagram or on YouTube, you'll see that she has some really cool music videos posted. So she really just captures the full spectrum of what it means to be an artist. And it's just really cool to see. So give her a follow. And of course, if you like today's episode, the best way to support me is to share with your friends and also leave me a rating on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That helps tremendously. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, and I will see you next week.